Yo, guys, it's Kyle coming at you from Bainstone Reviews. Today, I'm sitting down with Maziyar Khatam, the writer, producer, and one of the stars of this fantastic short film that I had the chance to watch, Baba. It was just fantastic. As I was just telling him, he has not seen the review yet. I did nothing but praise the film from beginning to end. It was just a blast. I laughed. I came close to tears, and so we're here to talk about his film today. So how are we doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. And then before we get into the actual film, I am curious how you got into filmmaking in the first place.
Yeah, I started in film school in Toronto. I went to Humber College. I studied film for 3 years, and I always had kind of a desire to tell stories, personal stories, and things like that. Even before film, when I was younger, I would always do theater. I loved acting. I loved writing in particular. I think that's kind of where
Mhm.
I found that I'm most comfortable in is sitting down and writing.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I met most of my team, who's been part of been working with me even before Baba, Anya Chirkova, Tyler Mason. These are my collaborators. Yeah, who I've met. Anya, I've met in film school. Tyler, I met on a television show, and we've just kind of been working ever since.
Okay.
And yeah, like I've always wanted to make short films.
Very, very nice. And so, um, you are much younger than I expected. I didn't know until pretty recently. I knew that you were in the film. I
Mhm.
didn't put two and two together, like who you were in the beginning. And based on the content, you seem like you must have been doing this for 40 years. It's so much, it's so mature and well put together. So kudos to you for being able to achieve this amount of drama and comedy and just incredibility at such a young age. And I feel old saying that. I feel I don't like that I'm at an age where I can say, "Oh, you're young." That makes me feel real old.
That's
But
why I got the beard. That's why I got
yeah,
the beard to look a little older.
yeah, yeah. Um, but then specifically with Baba, where did that idea come from?
Well, I mean, it is based on. I mean, aspects of it are based on my dad. Obviously, it's a film. There's elements that are exaggerated, but I really just wanted to tell a story, kind of about a language barrier between father and son, and that's kind of where it came from. I always found myself when I was with my dad that I'm always his translator in a way
Okay,
because he came here obviously from Iran, and his English, it never got better. And so
okay,
I always found myself kind of in like weird spots translating for him or talking for him. And I always thought, oh, that'd be really interesting concept for a film. Like that's something I hadn't seen before is like
mm,
a son translating for his middle-aged dad. It's like
yeah,
this is it's almost in a way thematically, if you look at that, if you dissect that, it's a son parenting his father, and that's what the film is
yeah,
ultimately about. And so I thought, what a that I mean, the only thing that like I can say happened 100% was that opening scene and with the landlord. That is like 100% accurate. Like that I've
okay,
seen with the pot and coming in, like the pot is on fire and I'm just coming in and smoke detectors and I'm like, what's going on? I'm coming from school, and then kind of being in this awkward situation where he's just telling me, curse words, and I'm just telling the landlord, no, 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 he's fine, he's gonna pay.
yeah,
That I would say, and then there's yeah, so it's very obviously very personal for me. I also want to talk about Iranian culture.
hmm,
This is the first film I've made that touched upon that. Everything else I made. Um, was mainly from my own life. Like I consider myself more so Canadian. I'm not too in touch with my Iranian roots, and this
okay,
film, in a way, is me trying to kind of revisit that and kind of acknowledge that and things like that. So yeah, it just kind of came out of a very personal place, and like my dad's life is very hectic, and this
mm,
was really the only it made sense to me to make it in this way. I also think he's a very funny guy as well. I mean, he may not think so, but
Yeah,
there's aspects of him that are very funny and tragic. I mean, it reminded me in a way of like, it had some, Shakespearean elements to it. Like it is a kind of a, a false story. It's like this guy's life spiraling out of control.
yeah.
And so those are the kind of elements I wanted to play with.
Okay, and it has to be. I would imagine that it's pretty liberating being able to tell your story, to being able to express to the world that you've been put in this position for a very long time, and regardless of your feelings on it, it's something that you've had to do and something that you've had to endure, and you're now getting to share this with the world. And then also, like you said, you're giving yourself this opportunity to get in touch with your heritage, and again being able to express that in film, something that you love. So I imagine that that has to be very liberating and freeing, and just exciting all the way around to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think writing it was more cathartic, um, than anything else, really. Um, I think editing it, like because I'm also the editor on it, editing it was a little bit painful. I'm more than a little bit.
Yeah,
But like now I'm able to kind of separate myself from it because it's out there, it's done. It just played at Sundance, and I can't touch it. There's nothing. I can't go and re-edit it. It's like it's done.
yeah,
And so that kind of sense that makes me really happy. And just seeing, having people come up to us after the screening and being like, that I can relate to that, or that I can see my dad in that, or like people relating and saying things like that. That feels really good that I'm able
yeah.
to also provide close like a little a small amount of closure for like other people as well.
Sure.
um but it's always going to be a difficult film for me to watch, just because like I'm in it, I play the son, it's my
Yeah.
it's my story and things like that. I almost feel like I'm a subject of a documentary, like in a way. And so um that that is a bit painful to watch, but I think that when I watch it though, I'm proud of everybody's work. I'm proud of all the actors, all the non-actors that were in it, and
Mhm.
the small crew that we had, and yeah, basically all of that. I'm just proud of the work.
Yeah, and you should be. Everybody was fantastic. Again, I nothing negative to say about the film in my review, so that's rare. So
Thank you.
yeah, of course. And then so you looked at, like you said, you have all these Shakespearean elements, and you approached it in a very specific way, but and I feel more now more so that I'm wrong in approaching it this way or seeing it this way, but I viewed it as a character study in a lot of
Mhm.
ways, where you see malice and you see suffering and you see all these different things come into play, and but no, I don't think that a character is, pigeonholed into one of those types of individuals. They have all these different pieces that come to play throughout the course of the short film. And so why did you choose to do it that way? Why did you choose to develop the characters in the way that you did?
Well, I mean, yeah, those were very good points, and I think that for me, a character has to have all of those elements. Like they have to have, it's like my greatest thing that I always look at is The Sopranos. Like you look at the
Hmm.
character of Tony Soprano, he's a character who's capable of great brutality, but at the same
Yeah.
time, there is a spot, there is a part of him that's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so I think people are like that. And to me, every character that I write, I try to stay away from likability. Like that's my kind of like, I get very scared when I talk to producers or investors and people like that, and we start talking about likability, because
Hmm.
that isn't something. And like I've talked at screenwriting seminars and things like that. I always tell people, stay away from likability. That's not something that you can do as a character. You can make the character charming as much as
Hmm.
you can, but leave likability to the actor. That's not something you can
Okay.
touch, because a performance can really change something. A different actor, Denzel Washington, can do something for your script that the writing can't do, the way he
Hmm.
performs it or something.
Sure.
So that's the one thing that I try to stay away. I just try to give, for my characters, I just try to give them a goal and I try to see how far they're willing to take it and what they're willing to sacrifice. Because the father, I mean, I'm like, spoiler alert, he's willing to sacrifice everything to be able to stay in that apartment. And
Yeah.
like one can argue that he wins at the end, because what did he want from the very beginning was to be able to not be evicted. And he
Right.
got it at the end. But what does he
Yeah.
lose? He loses his son.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what I try to have. Like in the film, all the characters want, like the characters all want something from each other,
Hmm.
and how they go about it, I think, shows their inner nature. I mean, even that weird guy who steals the painting, like
Yeah.
he is the most concealed character out of everybody. Like everybody has. Everybody wants something, even the landlord. But the landlord, I mean, like, the landlord by the end of it has a heart. Like he changes as well.
Yep.
He's able to see the father in a different light. He goes, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna die. Maybe I
Right.
shouldn't be so rough on him. Maybe I caused this because I put too much stress on this guy."
Hmm.
And we get to see his true character. And I think that I'm not sure who said it, but they said, if you the quote was something along the lines of, if you put enough pressure on your characters, you'll reveal who they truly are. And I
Okay.
think that's what happened to the dad. I think even at the very end, I think that there's a bit of remorse. Like when he loses everything, I don't think he realizes. That's the thing about the character too. He doesn't realize how messed up he is.
Right.
And that final scene too, a lot of people actually came up to us and they had really interesting interpretations. One, obviously the main one is, oh, he faked it at the end.
Hmm.
And some people were like, no, I think he faked the laugh, not the heart attack. The heart attack was real. He's just trying to look strong in front of his
Okay.
his his son. And I was like, wow, I didn't. They were like, oh, he was so genuine in his crying that I don't think that could have been fake. And I was like, wow, I didn't think of that. We obviously made it with our interpretations, but
Sure.
it's interesting seeing what people take with that character.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great point that you can interpret it different ways like that. But I interpreted it the way that I feel like most people did, like you said, that he had in fact faked that, and
Mhm.
just with the intention of getting what he wanted.
Yes.
Um, but then so it's obviously a very dramatic film. It's filled with anger and pain and suffering and just drama throughout the entirety. But you have comedy sprinkled throughout, even in the most intense moment, right before
Mhm.
everything kind of goes to shit at the end. I mean, like you said, he laughs because there's that part of him that maybe he's still working to manipulate everybody in the best way that he possibly can. Why did you choose to incorporate comedy into it? I know that you said your dad is funny, even though he doesn't
Yeah.
think he's funny. But why did you choose to include comedy instead of just drama throughout? Because I think it would have worked either way.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, well, for me, some of my favorite movies have levity at the most dark
Hmm.
parts. Like Paul Thomas Anderson's one of my favorite filmmakers, and I think he has a lot of funny moments. And I think that um, it's hard for me to just write all the way through serious. I think that I'm not writing with the intention of making the audience laugh, but I can tell you
Hmm.
that they were laughing during the screening, which is
Yeah.
what I'm glad. I just think that making something one way doesn't really serve you. I think when you have multi layers in it, multi genres, and you're
Hmm.
able to flip on a dime and be like, okay, now this is no longer funny. This is serious, and now it's funny again. I think, like, I'm a big fan of when a filmmaker can do that to me, because it feels like a roller coaster.
Hmm.
I think that when you make something intense all the way through, people just keep expecting more tension, but then when you disarm them with humor and then come back with tension, it creates a really interesting juxtaposition. It creates a really interesting kind of feeling. Like you go, oh, I didn't expect that. And I
Yeah.
always love that. And I think for this film too, we were like, okay, there's points where, it stops becoming funny and then ramps up again and then it goes. And then there's the elevator scene. And then, there's things like that. And I think that, I've seen the film with people and none of them laughed all the way through. They said, "Oh my God, that was like a nightmare. That was the most stressful thing. Like I
Yeah.
don't enjoy that." And there's some people who thought it was funny, most of the way through. And I think there isn't a wrong way of watching it. I think it depends how, like, if you're sick like me, you're gonna laugh all the way through. If that stuff makes you uncomfortable, you're still gonna get something out of it.
Yeah.
If you like to have that feeling of being compressed, then you'll enjoy it. So yeah, I just try to make it in a way that feels like organic for me. Like I try never like one of my biggest things is I try not to stop the story to tell a joke. If it can
Sure.
incite a character moment or if it can push something forward, then I'm all for that. And for this film too, like I felt the momentum couldn't stop. Like it just has to
Yeah.
keep going. It has to keep going. They have to keep staying in the apartment. They have to keep, and I think that was the most important thing for me. And then it just kind of came out as organically as it did.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredibly stressful. I mean, you have three people screaming at the top of their lungs at one another, and it feels like they're coming from all directions, even when you're sitting in front of a television watching. Um, and there was that moment where the father says, "Oh, I just want to fuck everyone," and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like that is the perfect. That's the perfect place for that piece of comedy because it kind of breaks up that tension just enough. It doesn't stop, like you said, it doesn't stop the momentum, but it breaks it up just enough where people aren't like pulling their hair out watching it and going, "Oh
yeah.
my god, this is too much to handle."
But it's
Uh,
also exposition as well because I want to inform the audience, oh, he's newly divorced, he's out
exactly.
there, he's partying, and the reason why he's partying is because the landlord is here because of the noise. There's there's ways too that I try like with writing to not to there's a level of exposition you have to give to the audience, especially when
Mhm.
you're starting right in the middle of the story. You want them to be confused, but you don't want them to, tune out of it. So I try to use that to my benefit as well. I was like, okay, I'm going to use a joke as an exposition to
Mhm.
kind of get the ball rolling.
Yeah, and it absolutely does. It does help to develop that character. It does help to develop the story. And like you said, you were really focused on making sure that momentum doesn't stop, and it helps. It helps that it helps propel the film forward. And I mean, it's a short film. You don't have tons of time to develop these things.
Mhm.
So the fact that you keep the ball rolling, you never stop, you never relent throughout, whether it's drama or comedy, it works very well to build all different parts of the film up very well. Um, and then so you had mentioned you wanted to sort of keep it in the apartment the best that you could. What's it? I mean, the cinematography is fantastic. You're in such a small space and you're able to capture so many different things. I mean, it seems like such a simple transition from the living room to the kitchen where the pot's on fire. Um, but that's not, especially when you have however many people you have on the crew in there crammed into one small area, trying to capture it in the best possible way. So, what's it like writing a script with all of that in mind, knowing that you're going to be in a small place,
Yeah.
which also does work very well to to help develop the film and the characters as well, because it helps like create the sense of claustrophobia throughout that I feel like the son is probably feeling in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, like when I'm writing these things, I'm also keeping in mind what I have access to. I mean, even the
Hmm.
last short film that we made, Bump, which was at Sundance last year, um, we made that for $200. Like we,
Wow.
and it was in a single shot because we had a day to get it, and that was it. And so we write with these kind of things in mind. Like we shot in my apartment, and this was literally like where the sound guys were hanging out, recording
Yeah.
sound. In the kitchen, we had Video Village, and then we would have to swap Video Village into the bathroom if we were shooting in the living room, and just things like that. And so we would write that in mind. We had a very small crew. I think it was about a little bit less than 10 people behind the
Okay.
camera. We try to keep it even smaller than that. Honestly, like 3 people is what we try to do.
Mm.
Just because we self finance these things, and we also want to keep it very contained and minimal. And it is very like the shoot was very intense. It was as intense as watching the movie because we
Yeah.
are all crammed in there. The apartment was hot as hell. It was just we're all just like tucked together. Everybody's doing multiple jobs and things like that. So yeah, that is part of it. Yeah, and in terms of yeah, for the writing again, yeah, like I try to write what I have in mind. Like I have, I write roles for friends, or we know a non-actor that would work great for this part. Like the guy who steals the painting, like
Mm.
that's somebody who I knew in high school,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, he used to bully me. Like, and I was like, "Dude, come on set and do that for real." And he's a really nice guy. I'll tell you this, he's a really nice guy, and he was great. He's a great improvisational actor. Like that
Mm.
scene, that was the last thing we shot too. Was that when he holds me up with the box cutter?
Mm.
That was. I'll say this: we did we did some improv, that when the noises that he made when he was holding me up, that was not in the script. There was
Okay.
dialogue that I wrote for him. He didn't say any of it. He just went off. And so yeah, like that kind of comes with that level of filmmaking when you just go, okay, this is, I'm going to hire this person, or we're going to work with this person in this kind of way. And I think that when I write my scripts, I have that in mind. I go, okay, this guy's really good at kind of improvising this thing. And instead of writing this monologue, oh, I'm going to cut you, I'm going to do this, I knew
Right.
that this guy was going to do something completely out of the box that I've never seen before. Weird, funny, dark,
Yeah.
stressful, and all that. And so, yeah, that's basically kind of how we work. And I kind of format my scripts in that way to allow that kind of thing on set. Yeah.
And the crazy thief, he, I imagine that, well, not I imagine that it plays out more realistic when you're not, like you said, having someone hold a box cutter and go, I'm going to cut you. Like it's just what's coming to him naturally, which is
Mhm.
what would happen in real life. You're not planning out this monologue, like you said, in real life, when
Yeah.
when it's spur of the moment and you're just doing whatever you can, or wherever you feel, whatever comes to mind at the time. So again, that works very well too. And that must be really nice knowing that you have someone that can improvise the way that he does.
Yeah. And like yeah, for me, I just wanted, like, I was like, if I feel scared as the performer,
Mm,
the audience 100, like if I buy it, the audience is gonna buy it as well. And yeah, he was game to do anything. He was
yeah.
just like, we did different versions of it. There was things that we had to edit out because they were way too much. Like
Okay.
it was like, oh my god, this is going into like a horror territory, which we got to rein it back now because we got to go back into the father story.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like those kind of elements are so much fun to play with. And I write very talky movies, but I also can appreciate when a character moment that is without dialogue, because
Mm,
because I think that's what made that scene so strong is the noises that he's making. Like it's not dialogue. He just became an animal in that
yeah.
instant. And I think that there is no line of dialogue I could have written that could have been as crazy as that.
Sure. Fair enough. And I feel like I know the answer to this already, but it was a thought that I had when the film ended. Was there any point in time where you go, maybe this is part of a larger story, maybe it's part of a feature, or maybe it's part of a mini series? Because I feel like at the end, when everything goes to hell, there's it's still very open ended. Like
Mm.
you don't know what's next, but you've grown close to these characters in such a short amount of time that I think you very much want to know what's next. So was there any point where you had said to yourself, there needs to be more of this, whether it needs to be longer or needs to be part of a series? If not, I'm curious why. If you did, I'm curious what thought was there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Baba is a complete story from beginning to end.
Mhm.
Funny enough, we edited the film to be shorter, and we had a different ending in mind. We actually ended with him sitting on the couch, and the titles come up, and that's it. There's no laugh, and it's
Okay.
oh my god, it was real. And we had that, and we are like, okay, let's do that. And then we were like, no, it'd be interesting to kind of, change it up again, just do a 360. For me, the film is complete. I have a feature film. It deals with the same world tonally. It's the same world as Baba and my other short bump.
Mm,
Like this kind of like this absurd dark comedy that deals with true life elements, and sprinkle some Iranian culture in there. I don't really have a plan to make this anything bigger. For me, I look at it as a complete film. And I'm kind of, yeah, I'm just excited to tackle the next one, which I think I'm really happy that I found my voice, because I think this is the kind
yeah.
of filmmaking that I want to continue, this kind of style, this kind of comedy, and these kind of characters. Yeah, and the next film, very much like if people enjoy Baba, and if they've seen Bump last year, deals with the same kind of themes, dials it to 11. If
Okay.
if they thought this was stressful, they're gonna leave halfway through the movie of the feature. But yeah.
Very cool. And then So I ask similar questions all the time because I have issues trusting people with things like with my ideas and things like that. What's it like writing the film and then handing it off to a couple of other people and saying, you're going to sit in the director's chair and you're going to make this come to life? You obviously play a huge part in this where
Mm.
you're one of the lead actors. You obviously wrote the film, you produced it, you edited it, but you're
Mm.
not in that director's chair. So there has to be some part of you that has to let go. And what's it like doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I when I wrote it, I didn't really see myself in the director's chair. I think it was too personal for me that I couldn't tackle it. I mean, there was certain directorial choices that they let me kind of like, oh, can we go this way? So Anya Chirkova and Megan Ismailsoy, they directed the film, and I gave them the script. And it was a level of trust that I built with them. Like we did the previous film together, like Bump we did together, where Marin was the cinematographer on it. Anya
Okay.
was the producer, and so we built that kind of level of trust. And I knew that I gave it to them, and they were able, because the story wasn't personal for them, they were able to kind of make it in a way that felt like a documentary almost. Like I'm the subject, and they're able to kind of tell my
Okay.
story like in a way. Like I felt like if I were to make like if I were to direct it, I would almost get in the way of it because it was too personal.
Okay.
um and I felt that I really wanted to be play the character, and I wanted to just focus on that, focus on the writing and the producing elements of it. And we worked so well together, and it was like I almost felt like we had like a Safdie brother Ronald Bronstein kind of trio. Like it was like a three-headed dragon, and
Okay.
we all kind of like we 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 didn't speak honestly that much during the shoot. We spoke more during post production. Like I think that's when we had more of our kind of like, okay, how are we going to tackle this discussions? Because during the shoot, it was really straightforward. The only thing
Mm.
that we were fighting was every day the time. Oh, let's do 10 more takes of this, things like that.
Yeah.
And we would trust each other. We're like, I would screw up a take and I'd go, okay, I'm gonna go again. I'm just gonna like, and we know each other so well. Where I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go two lines back. We don't need to do the whole thing. Like I know that
Mm.
this is the part that we're gonna, and this is how we're gonna edit it. Like we know. Like I don't even have to communicate that. I'm like, I just have to get that one line again. We're
Okay.
just in sync in that way. Um, and it's rare. It's really rare to find people who
Yeah.
they understood the material right away. They didn't try to change it.
That's
That
nice.
also, it's like I'm like right now with this feature, it's a much bigger thing. It's a bigger story, it's a bigger budget, and
Mm.
things like that. And I always find that when you bring a producer or somebody who brings money or something like that, your project is a knife, and everybody's kind of filing it down. And I think
Yeah.
there's some suggestions you're like, okay, that is a great idea, and there's some times where you have to kind of put your foot down, and it's very rare to find those kind of people. But with Anya and Marin, it was honestly like every idea that they brought to it and every collaboration that we had honestly just made the story um, a so much better film. And I have to give kudos to Anya. She's the one who found the landlord, who's a real landlord in real life,
Okay.
and things like that. And so, yeah, just like everybody brought so much to the film.
That's awesome. Like again, I don't know if I'd be able to trust somebody with a script that I created, and again, something that was so personal. But it's great that you're able to recognize that you're maybe too close to it, and that you need to step back just a little bit and let somebody else take the reins. I think that's really cool that you're able to acknowledge that
I,
and
I
understand
pulled
that.
a I pulled a George Lucas. Had
Yeah,
to. That was my Empire Strikes Back moment where you gotta go back and you gotta be like, okay, this is a better choice.
yeah, for sure. Um, and then I know that it just screened. Baba just screened at Sundance. Um, but where are you headed next? Where can people find you?
I don't think we actually have any screenings lined up.
Okay.
But things I if you want to follow the festival run, you can follow me on Instagram,
Okay.
Maz.Katam on Instagram, or Funny Bone Pictures, our production company that we
Mhm.
have. It'll definitely be available online. We're
Perfect.
hoping to have a Vimeo staff pick at the end of the festival run. You can check out Bump, our previous short from last year at Sundance. That's on Vimeo.
Nice.
Um, And I'm hoping to have something in Toronto. We haven't shown the film in Toronto, which is where we're from, so
Awesome.
that would be amazing to have. But yeah, we're still riding the wave of Sundance and being like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah, that has to be incredible. One of the biggest film festivals in the
Yeah,
world. Yeah, that's
yeah,
so cool. But yeah, I'll make sure that there's links available for everything, and they can follow you and follow Bump, and then when the time comes, they can watch Baba as well.
yes. Thank you so much.
Of course. And then I am curious, what are some of your favorite films?
Ooh, okay. It always changes,
Yeah,
obviously. Like it
yeah.
always. I mean, the three that I have to say, and these aren't like they're very different from the type of films I make. Number one, I would say Close Up by Abbas Kiarostami.
Okay.
It's an amazing film. It's on the Criterion Collection. Funny enough, there's a video of Michael Cera talking about it, and that kind of I was like, oh, okay, interesting. It's a kind of a hybrid between a doc and a fiction film. It's an amazing film made in 1999. And then my second film, it's a trilogy, so I'm going to count this as one, is
Okay.
Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight.
Okay.
The Richard Linklater trilogy. That is just I can't believe somebody made that over. I think it was like 12 years, and oh my
Wow.
god, like the patience. I can't do that. I can't. That's just watching those films. Those films are just like they're not even films. And then the last one, I'd have to say, oh, this is so tough. I mean, like, I love so many films. I would say either The King of Comedy or Taxi Driver, one of those. I'll just leave it at
Okay.
that.
Okay. Very cool. And so the trilogy I have not seen yet.
Ooh,
It is on my list of things to watch. I am making a list of all of the films that people are telling me to watch now, and it's an extensive list because I am far behind on a lot of really important films. Uh, but I'm excited to tackle them because everybody talks so highly about all these different films, and I'm excited.
it's so good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
watched them all in one night. Oh
Oh
man, what a
wow.
night it was. What a night. I would say if you're gonna watch them, maybe put a little bit of distance between each one. But
Okay.
I was like, I need to know what happens next. And so I just watched the whole thing and I'm like, oh my God, it's 5 a.m. I gotta go to my script writing class.
Yeah.
I was still in film school back then, but really it's those films are just genius.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing them. I look forward to seeing what you do in the future, and best of luck with your feature and everything going forward. And thanks again so much for sitting down with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. The film was fantastic. Again, for everyone watching, follow along, figure out when you can watch this film, where you can watch this film. It's one of the best things I've seen in a long time.
Thank you.
Of course. You have a great day.
You too.
See ya.